Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for night number 3 for our conversations with the candidate. And tonight we're with Heather Barron and excited to be able to talk to her and get some of her positions and her views and grill her a little bit and see what she's hoping to bring to the board and what she has to say about some of the policies and things. You should be able to leave some comments in the live chat, and those are something we may or may not be able to get to in our conversation tonight, but those are things that she'll be able to look at later and then provide an answer when she has time and is available to do that. So just want to kind of reiterate some of the things we've been talking about at the beginning of each of our sessions. And one of those is that, just to be very clear, this is not an affiliation with any other organization. We're not tied to any Facebook groups. There was originally, we were looking at showing it on one particular Facebook group, and that was just because I was reaching out to see who had an audience and where it might be the easiest place to post it. And it just ended up working out where it made the most sense to do it independently so that nobody even thought it was tied to any kind of anything. And so we wanted to go ahead and pull that, and that way everybody could also share it, and it makes it easy for everybody to share as well. So we went that direction with it. To keep things simple as well. My name is Matt McMorris. I'm the pastor at Grace Valley Church here in Lodi, and just really wanting to get to know these candidates on a personal level. And I thought, man, if I can sit down and talk to them, if we can get them on camera and share that with everybody else, then we all kind of are better off for it to be able to hear from them exactly what they want to do. I'm thankful for the conversations that took place at the school the other day in the Performing Arts Center. I thought that was tremendous to be able to get all 5 of them together and hear kind of their responses to each of those questions. And as I listened, I thought, man, it would be really great to be able to dive in and get to know them a little bit better. I reached out and invited all 5 of the candidates. 3 of them responded that they would like to participate. The other 2 declined that invitation, and I respect that. That's entirely their decision, and I'm not upset at them. I wish they would. I'd love to sit down and talk to them, but that's purely their decision, and so we want to be respectful of that. But I'm thankful for the ones that have reached out and said that they would participate in this conversation as well. The other thing I want to clarify is that, yes, my wife is on the school board, but she has nothing to do with this. I told her this is something that I was planning to do. I don't get inside information. I'm not asking questions that only a school board member would know. I'm just asking general knowledge questions that are designed to help us get to know these candidates better. So that's really, there's no motive, there's no agenda. I'm attempting to be as impartial as possible. Everybody has a bias. On every subject, on every topic, everybody has a bias. Do I have opinions and preferences? Of course. I'm not denying that. I never have denied that. But I do want these conversations to be as open-ended for the candidate as possible so they can get their point and their perspectives across to the best of their ability. And that's my job then, is just to facilitate that conversation and try to press them on those things so that we understand them a little bit better. Tonight, I have Heather Barron with me, and I'm super thankful that she would join me and be a part of this production. And so I'm going to jump right into my conversation with Heather. And first of all, thank you for being a part of this.
No, thank you for having me. This is great because, like you said, it's just nice to do a conversation instead of getting a minute to answer
right.
something or be limited on Facebook or whatever. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I want to kind of jump right in with some conversation because I want us to be able to cover as much ground as we can in the time that we have. You have been, and I mean this respectfully, you've been fairly outspoken. You've shown up at school board meetings, and you've been a part of a lot of the conversations in and around the school board. And a lot of your ideas maybe are different from what I can tell from what the current school board is often voting for. So here's my question to you: do you think that you can be a good fit, and do you think you'll work well in the structure that's already existing if you were to get elected to the school board, and what would that look like for you?
I think I'd be a great fit. The reasoning is just to bring a different perspective. I just feel like they're pretty lopsided right now. And I do disagree with some of the stuff they've done. And I feel like I could just bring a different view. You know, people have said, oh, you like this and this and this, that's different from the board. Well, that's perfect. That's exactly what a board is supposed to be. We don't want everybody to agree on a board.
Sure.
We want conversation. We want people to bring up different points of view. And I feel that, but at the same time, okay, I might be, people say, well, you come to the meetings, you speak, yes, I am, but I am not a kind of person that's going to only think that my view is the right view. and I feel like I work well with others, and I usually am pretty curious of a person too. So I want to hear what their views are. So I think if I was on the board, I would definitely be a listener, not just going there and assuming that I'm going to get the vote every time. And I know that I'm one person out of 7. So I'm not expecting to change everything because I'm on the board. I'm just wanting to bring a different view so they can consider different points of view.
So you've talked in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to misrepresent you in any way. But in the past, you've talked about at the school board meetings about the issue, for example, of masking, but particularly there was a survey that was taken. And I've kind of asked everybody about this, but I'm going to approach it a little bit different with you because you've spoken about this. And I'm going to make the statement, but correct me if it's incorrect. Your statement, the way I understood it, was that the survey was majority of people in our community were in favor of unmasking our kids.
Yes.
Which you were outspoken that you were in favor of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Your frustration with the school board was that they didn't vote in accordance with the community.
Yes.
So here's the twist. If today, now that Omicron is here, if you were on the school board today and there was a survey that came back tonight and you had a school board meeting tonight and it said the majority of the people in the community were in favor of masking, what is the thought process for Heather Barron and how do you vote?
So I've actually gotten something similar to that where people have said, oh, it sounds like you're just going to always do what the public wants. And that is not necessarily the case either. The reason that survey upset me so much is because COVID was at first it was so unknown. So right away, we shut down, we did all that. By the time that survey came out, things were known about COVID. It was real, but it was not the threat to our children that originally was thought. And ending that year, 2020, virtual and just seeing what the kids had to go through. And then, all summer the kids were together and just seeing real life, like what I was seeing. And I know that, people will bring up different stats and, it's dangerous, whatever. But you can literally find any stat to support what you're going to say. So the school board, when they sent that survey out, I was like, great idea, because it is so new. And it's such a hard decision. So I'm like, this is awesome. They're bringing us in. They're letting us make a decision that is directly affecting our children. There's going to be a lot of school board decisions that are not going to directly affect our children. Yes, to a point. But this is something that every day our kids were going to go through. So I was like, perfect. The survey came back, 75%. I'm like, this is awesome. I said, I could see them possibly going hybrid, because there are still people out there that wanted their kids masked or even home. I respect that. That's your child. So I thought that would have been perfect. And so originally when they said, we're going to go virtual, but then for the masking, when that came out, I was just shocked. I was like, we are literally telling you. I even actually said this at the board meeting because Adam kept saying, we got to listen to the specialists. We got to listen to the scientists. We got to listen to, all this. And I explained to him, I said, I get what you're saying, but this is Lodi. And a specialist for your own child, a parent is a specialist. So, you can go by all the stats of, COVID causes this or whatever. And even by then, it was starting to really get discovered that this was not a threat to our children. And then for them to survey us and then to go completely opposite, I didn't know what the point of the survey was. And it actually just was really insulting. If you're going to take the time to send a survey and then and it wasn't, 52% and 48. I mean, this was 75%. I just thought it was really sad.
So if the survey came back that way today, but in the opposite direction?
In the opposite, if I was on the board, I would definitely plead my case, because obviously people would know that I'm not for it. But if, again, this decision that was directly affecting our kids, I would probably go with the public.
Okay.
But I would definitely bring my case and talk about it. I wouldn't just, okay.
Sure.
And maybe even like invite more parents to sell me on it.
Yeah.
You know, if I saw, because I'm assuming they saw the survey results before the meeting. So I would probably really desperately say, okay, guys, help me out. Sell me. Why are you picking this? Because I feel that this is the way.
So if it is, in fact, which it is, a public school, shouldn't the goal of a public school, because they're thinking about children, but they're thinking about all of them, not necessarily in the same way a parent thinks of their kids.
Yeah.
Isn't it the goal of a public school to keep kids in school, in the sense of, you mentioned a second ago, they could do a hybrid situation or something, but if you're a public school board member or administrator, I see where you're coming from as a parent, but as an administrator, doesn't there have to be this thought of, we're not here to exist to create school models that work for everybody. Our job is to have a publicly offered school for all people. And the best way to keep people in school at the time for them was masking. Do you feel differently?
I feel, again, it's such a, in general, you can say different things, but considering we're talking about the masking, they repeat the question one more time.
Since it's a public school,
Mm-hmm.
and the goal typically of a public school is to provide an education where kids are in person in school. The argument was that if we remove masks, people could contract COVID, which would spread like wildfire, and more people would get out of school. Your comment a second ago was you would have liked maybe to see a hybrid option or something, but that's not typically the goal of a public school.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to have in-person schooling.
Yes.
So with that, I'm asking you to think as a board member rather than just as a parent. Does that change your perspective at all if you consider the fact that the goal, and Scott last night, I don't know if you saw Scott's conversation with me or not, but his argument, and I don't want to misrepresent him, so please anybody can go back and watch that, but the way I believe he presented his argument was his priority is to keep kids in school.
Yes. Well, the problem with that is that I think keeping kids in school for COVID in particular has nothing to do with masks.
Okay.
And I mean, I have, if you want me to read off some data, I will. To be honest, my whole feeling about the mask situation, like right away when COVID came out, it was scary. We did the lockdown and it was nerve-wracking. And then things started to come out saying, well, it's not quite as dangerous. And then I'm going to be honest, I stopped listening to the news and the CDC and everything because it was getting so back and forth and nobody knew what they were talking about. So I just started taking my own observations in my community and said, okay, this is not as bad. I had talked to people that had COVID, and I unfortunately talked to people that had lost people to COVID, and it's horrible. I never want that to happen. But the risk is so minimal.
But do you think, I understand the risk being minimal, but the spread of COVID is very possible, which can take, I think it was 70-something% greater with Omicron than it was with the original variant.
Yeah.
Do you think the risk of school having to shut down warrants being more careful with our decision-making process on masking?
This isn't probably going to be very liked by people. I think we need to calm down on all the testing, to be honest, because this is proven to be very similar to the cold, especially Omicron. Even COVID, I'm not saying everybody. Some people got really sick from it or is still getting sick from it. Majority of people are barely getting anything because of this, and we are shutting school down because of somebody having a headache or someone having a stomach ache. I wish they would actually back off on the testing and let's try to get back to how school used to be. If you had a cold, and now I feel like we could be a little more strict. So if your child is feeling sick, stay home.
Right.
But the problem that's happening with all these quarantine rules at school right now is that they keep saying, we want to keep the kids in school. We want to keep them in school. Well, you're not keeping kids in school because of these quarantine. My son has missed 6 days of school for nothing.
Yeah.
And 5 of those days was because they said, oh, just take a test, okay, you'll get the results in 24 to 48 hours. Well, day 5, he still didn't get them. And so he missed a whole week, beginning of high school, And then just recently we had to do it again. So you're not keeping kids in school by being so strict with this stuff. Instead of just letting things go and like letting it roll and stop enforcing the testing, kids will be fine.
So what are your thoughts on quarantining then? If somebody comes to school, gets sick, and they do get a test and it's positive, and they were in a classroom with, I don't know how big our classrooms are, 18 other kids that are unmasked, if you get what you'd like to see happen, do those kids need to quarantine? Do they need to stay home?
I am more of the type of, you have to be proactive for yourself in any aspect in life. Obviously, I want the world to be a kind place, but I try to always instill this in my children. You can't expect the world to cater to you on your every need. So again, this would be great if we had to talk about this on the board. I would probably be pretty extreme, which would be great because then we would discuss it and we'd actually come to a middle ground. Because right now I feel like we're way over here. In my perfect world, and I'm not saying that I would insist on this. I would, like I said, I would love to be on the board right now and talk about this so I could bring up. I would prefer if your child is sick, keep them home. Keep them home until they get better. If you want to test them, great. And then at that point, if you do test positive, or even if you don't, you can, if you want to send an email to that class that he was in and say, this child wasn't, not saying who it was. A person wasn't feeling good in your classroom. You can do what you want. And if they don't want to get tested, they come back when they're feeling fine. And it's fine.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like so extreme. Like, well, we have to know. Why? There's no pill that you get for COVID. There's not. If there was an easy fix, you have COVID, here you go. Great. There isn't. It's something that has to run through. And I think it's one of those things that we're going to have to live with now. We live with the flu. We live with strep. We live with pneumonia, all that stuff. And I think it's time. 3 years, it's one of those things that's going to be around. And if you are nervous about it, then you can wear a mask. You can, stay away from people more, whatever. But you cannot expect the world to keep doing this. And the whole thing with masks, it's like, I just saw a thing. And like I said, I didn't actually do a lot of research before all of this. In my personal opinion, I always just felt like I don't think masks are doing anything because we're wearing them and kids are still getting sick. Well, sick. That's another thing I don't like is that, people hear COVID and they assume that you're super sick. Chances are half the time kids don't even know they have it, or if they do, it's cold symptoms. But now just being on the board and people had come up to me and they're like, well, your stand on masks, where does that come from? Not just emotional. So I ended up doing some research and I was pretty shocked at the stats. So first of all, the former FDA administrator said cloth masks are not going to provide a lot of protection. This is an airborne illness, talking about COVID, and a cloth mask is not going to protect you from a virus that spreads through airborne transmission. So right there, he's saying cloth masks are not doing anything. Now, I have lost a lot of trust in the CDC, but I know that a lot of people still put a lot of trust into it. So I ended up going and finding stats from the CDC. And it said people that have died of COVID are split pretty evenly into 4 age groups. 26% have been at least 85 years old. 26% have been 75 to 84 years old. 23% have been between 65 and 74. And 25% have been 30 to 64 years old. 0.7% of COVID deaths in the U.S. has involved someone under the age of 30. And even most of those involved people were people between the ages of 25 and 29.
But I don't think most people are even arguing the seriousness of COVID at this point.
Okay.
I think the concern that I'm perceiving is the having to shut down if it spreads. But maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think the spread is the concern, and there are people that think that the masks are slowing the spread. And so if we can continue to mask, that slows the spread so that we have fewer people getting sick, so we can keep more teachers teaching in the classroom and keep more kids in the actual classroom.
But I don't think it is slowing the spread. And I, again, can take that as a personal experience. I mean, our kids have been wearing masks and they keep saying COVID numbers are still around, COVID. And I think it's because it's like the cold.
Yeah.
I mean, in our generation, when we were in school, if they tested everybody to see if they had the cold, we would have been going through the same thing right now. People would have to stay home and do all that. They didn't. It was something that just happens. And that's our world is going to have to, it's going to be on that list of things that people can get. Some people are going to get them worse. Some people aren't. But making kids wear masks all day and it's not doing anything is insane to me.
So what are your thoughts then on having a medical advisory board? Are you happy that there is one? Are you happy the way that was selected? Are you happy with the way that process is going? Or would you like to see that be different? Because right now, the board, and people can watch this on the board meetings in on the school's YouTube channel, the board has made the decision that whatever the medical advisory board recommends becomes policy. So there was some confusion in some conversations with people that were saying things like the board has the final say, which is true in a sense, but they would actually have to meet and vote down what the advisory board recommends. So as it stands, the medical advisory board, if they made a recommendation today, something silly, they said we want kids to double mask from now on, it would automatically become policy. It's already been voted to follow the policy. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's wisdom in having them, and how would you want to go about handling that?
If we want to, and I think I said this at the Optimist Forum too, I mean, if we're going to reach out to someone for a quick stat or just like, you know what, a little issue, that's great. I mean, we can't expect everybody to get approved that we're getting info from. But if we're actually going to have an advisory board, medical advisory board that we are listening to constantly, then they should be elected. Or, I mean, at least approved. I don't know how the whole process would work. I mean, I can't imagine we would hold an election for that.
Right.
But, and I feel like I'm not exactly, I know I've looked and I don't know exactly who's on there. But we need to get all aspects then, not just, I know there's a local doctor on there. Great. But maybe we should have, an ER nurse that's actually dealt with COVID, or homeopathic doctor. Mm-hmm. Different options, not just
maybe a mental health professional.
Yes, that would be huge. Just because I think that's...
Which there may be. I don't know if there is or not.
I don't know either. I've looked before, and I just can't remember exactly. I just kind of looked real quick to see. But no, if we're going to do something like that, we need to definitely have a good span. Just like a normal board, you want different points of view, not just the same.
Do you think you can bring a different point of view to the table that is also capable of working well with people that disagree with you? Because you're, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all. You're a strong personality. You know what you stand for, and you stand unashamed on what you believe. Do you think that you can work? Can you play well with others? Maybe that's a good way to put it to a mom. Can you play well with others?
Yes, I believe I can. I hope no one's ever thought that that's not the case. I know some people, of course, on good old Facebook, think that different opinions of me.
Everything on Facebook is true.
Oh, yes, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But no, I think I do. I mean, I've had, friends in the past that we've had little discussions, and to be honest, my daughter is pretty opposite thinking of me a lot of times, and we've discussed things, and that's this thing. It's like, it's funny that she's actually changed my mind on things. I've changed her. I mean, especially being on a school board position, I feel like I'll probably overwhelm myself, I'm guessing, but I want to hear from everybody, because I know that people, if I get on the board, elected me.
Yeah.
They trusted me. So for me to just come up there and act like, I'm not going to listen to anybody, I mean, that's why we even run then.
Right. It seems that that's a common concern in the community, that people feel like they're not being heard. What would you like to see done to help remedy that?
Well, I'm sure this year especially, I'm sure those board members are getting email after email. I cannot even imagine.
Yeah.
So obviously that's an option. And maybe the school website, I'm not going to lie, I don't think it's the best setup. I feel like you do have to search for things certain, and believe me, I'm not like super, technology
Sure.
smart either. But to be honest, their old website I liked better. It just was easier to find things. But one thing I would definitely not do is they just limited public input. That was a shock to me. I know it was brought up, but in a way, I thought there's no way. There's no way they're going to do that, especially now with everything going on. That if I had any power, I don't know how. Again, and it was funny actually. Adam Steinberg just sent us an email to all of the new possible candidates for the board with all this information. And I looked at some of it. We just got it yesterday. I looked over at some of it. There's a lot, and there's going to be a lot for me to learn if I end up getting on the board. But that would be something that I would possibly try to change immediately, because we have to hear from everybody on
Sure.
that. And just more transparency. I mean, I know that you can go to the website and you can look things up, but maybe, instead of having to click 8 times to get to something, put it out there more.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the parents care about what's happening at the school for sure. They want to know what's happening with their child, but I mean, we should definitely have a tab on there that people can just look and find anything they want about the board.
I appreciate too, and I wasn't able to go to the last one. I'm hoping to go to the next one, and I would encourage anybody that can. Vince and I think Adam was there with him. We're at the Buttercream Bakery last Saturday, I think.
I heard about that too.
Specifically to just answer questions, and they just sat there in a forum where anybody could come in, anybody could talk to them, and when topics are so highly debatable and hotly contested, I props to them for making that decision to sit down with the community and completely open themselves
and
up.
I think they have several other dates set up for that. And I know they're going to different communities too. I think they're going to Harmony Grove and OP.
They were there last night.
Okay.
Yep.
So, no, that's awesome. And that's the thing too. Like even right now, we're just having conversation. When you go on a website and you try to look up things, it's so much easier talking to someone. So that would be awesome. And if they're going to limit public input at meetings, well, then maybe we should set up a whole different thing every 2 months or 3 months, or even a month.
Right.
Where people can just come in then. If you don't want to take up the actual school board meeting time, which I know, that sucks for the school board because we're putting even more time, and I get it. But at least.
But then you're
now
also making important decisions at 11 o'clock at night when there is that. So maybe setting up something else. Maybe there's a compromise.
And that would be, because then the school board, the meetings would be pretty much, you'd know when you're going to get out of there. Well, and then it's like, well, this is the public input meeting, so it might be a few hours, but I'm not making any major decisions.
Right.
So something like that.
It's tough for sure. I know. There's discontentment with many people towards the school board. There's a lot of people that are very happy with the school board. There's some that are discontent, but there's also a lot of division in the community. Masking, and we're going to talk about some of these other issues in a second, but how do you think you can help, or what do you think can be done just to help bring some unity in the community? I don't think people are going to unify around opposing ideologies, and that's okay. I don't think anybody's expecting that.
Yeah.
But how can we as a community heal a little bit and have some of that Lodi pride where you believe one thing, I believe another thing? Right now, there seems to be some lashing out. Social media is one of the greatest blessings and curses in the world. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? Just if you're on the school board, you're kind of right in the thick of it.
Yeah. I think we all just need to relax and put your egos aside, and realize that your point of view is not correct. It's a point of view. It's an opinion.
Sure.
And I think sometimes people forget that, and they want to, push it so hard on you because, they're passionate about it. I get it. But attacking someone or just automatically taking offensive is not the way to do it. You have to just, you can even say, well, we're going to agree to disagree. And that's okay.
I actually had, and I don't want to put their name out there just out of respect to them in case they would rather not, but I had somebody in the community, a community leader, reach out to me a couple months ago. And they had heard some things and they had some questions. And they called me and said, hey, could we get together? And we did. And at the end of the day, we disagreed on our preferences and our opinions on the issues, but we walked away friendly and agreeing to disagree respectfully. Mm-hmm. And I wish there was more of that in this community where we could, We could share ideas, we could talk, and we could disagree, and that could be okay.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still a democracy. We get to vote, and we get to have our voice. Which, reminder, vote. No matter who it's for, please
Yes.
get out and vote. I'm gonna change gears on you. We're gonna go from one really hard subject right into another really hard subject.
Okay.
So get ready.
Okay.
Does Lodi have a systemic racial problem?
I don't think so. I would hope not. Obviously, we are majority of white people, but I would hope that we would never make anyone feel unwelcomed. I know that being a small town in general, nothing to do with color or anything, it's cliquey. And I grew up here, and even now, I have a pretty big group of friends still from high school, and there's some of us that actually got married to our high school sweethearts, including myself. There's several of us, and then there's others that married outside, and they're always like, I feel like I'm an outsider, and I'm like, that made me so sad. So I hope that isn't a problem. At the same time, I wouldn't be just saying that the world is perfect.
Sure.
I know there's people out there that
And
say things and do things that they shouldn't, and it's dumb.
I don't doubt that there are, at times, racially motivated statements that should not be made, and moments in our community where things happen that people, I would stand utterly against any form of racism. The reason I'm asking is, in our school district, there seems to be a lot of talk and a lot of financial investment in things like Dane County Equity Consortium and books that have been given to the staff, and even some kind of bonus pay for continuing education on you could choose a topic, and one of the topics was equity. What would you like to see happen with the training and this whole equity and racial issues that are being discussed amongst our school board? I'm gonna kind of start it there. Maybe I can drive in a little deeper with it in a second, but I want to kind of start a little more broad.
I mean, I guess I have a real issue with assuming anything of anybody based on their skin color. That just irritates me. I would hope it irritates anybody, either the person that's getting judged by their skin color and the person that's doing it. Just because someone's a certain color or cultural does not mean that they automatically have this, and this about them. So, and I have not gotten too much into, I know that CRT has been brought up and equity and all that. I personally haven't experienced it. Like, my kids haven't come home too much to say, well, they were talking about this and they were teaching that. And I feel like being a small community, we don't need to do as much of that as Sun Prairie or Madison, where it's more diverse. But at the same time, I wouldn't want it just to be not addressed at all. I mean, we need to, that's the thing, though. Sometimes small town, they're like, oh, well, you're not used to having different colors.
Right, and that's some of the conversations I've had even with Vince, the district admin, where he said we're trying to make sure that our teachers are equipped so that people of color, if they move in, because we're in such a predominantly white community, we may not even realize that there are insensitivities.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the arguments are we need training, and we need to work with these organizations and do these things because we need to make sure that when people come in that are of a different color, or when they are part of our school, that we are treating them in an appropriate manner. So do you think that our school, our educators and our administration, do we need to be a part of something like the Dane County Equity Consortium?
I don't think so. Like I said, we need it to be addressed.
Sure.
I don't think we need to put a bunch of money and resources into it too much. But I guess to me, I just rather people just talk about it. I feel like now, I don't know, recently in the last few years, it's like a thing where you can't even talk about the color of someone's skin and it's automatically racist. And it's irritating to me because I don't care what color skin you are, but I'm also not going to be blind to the fact that your skin is darker than mine or your skin is lighter than mine. Like, I don't understand why that's such a bad thing. And so I feel like in my world, I don't treat anybody differently. And I would kind of hope, and I really do think majority of our population feels that way. Like there's very few people that are racist. Unfortunately, it gets so much attention that I think, and then people do question themselves, well, am I racist for, something? And I don't know. So I would like to put a little bit of in it. I just don't think we need to spend a ton of money. Also, I would like to know there's just a fine line of CRT and equity too, like, and equality. I mean, if you're going to, if we're going to these seminars and making sure that teachers are treating kids the same and all that, and if you do want to look at a kid's background and say, you know what, I think he could use a little help here and there, not based on his color though, on his upbringing or like his household, I mean, there's a student in Lodi right now, and my son has come home and talked to him, and I know he's not in a good place at home. And that is, and you know what, it has nothing to do with what he looks like. So, but I would want it to be fair, because you don't want to get to the point where all of a sudden we're teaching CRT too. And CRT, sounds great on paper. We're going to treat everybody differently. And anybody that has, problems, we're going to make sure that they are, get up there. But you can teach cultural stuff. You can teach history on minorities without making, white people or any different skin color bad for their history.
Can you define, because I know everybody kind of has their own opinions on it, when you say CRT for critical race theory,
okay,
can you define what you mean when you say critical race theory?
I think there's like 50 different definitions. In my world, it's basically teaching, I feel like it's trying to teach people to be guilty about what their ancestors have done. And I also feel like it's segregating people. Instead of just, okay, let's have history class, and today we're going to learn about this person who happens to be white. Tomorrow we're going to learn about this person who happens to be black. It shouldn't be like, okay, now when we talk about the white person, I'm going to, point at certain people. And when we talk about the black person, I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at, no, it's just taught. It's history. It has nothing to do with their skin. So CRT to me, all of a sudden, when teachers are, they're bringing in this thing saying like, well, you're a white person, you have had privileges that this person hasn't. You don't know that just by the color of their skin. No, you have no idea what this person's life has been. And so like I said, I know that people have been like, well, we need to teach more of minority stuff. That's awesome. Yes. Any history that we can teach of our country, of our world, do it. But don't make someone feel guilty about what their ancestors did.
So you're not saying, if I understand correctly, you're not saying that slavery shouldn't be taught, or that white people it should be taught that white people were innocent, and you're fine with an accurate teaching of history.
Yes.
Where we've had strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
You're fine with that.
I mean, slavery was part of our country, and unfortunately back then it wasn't looked at as how it is looked now. And we also need to teach that to the kids. I mean, at all times it was wrong. There was never a time where people were like, yes, we.
And it still is in so many parts of the world.
Yes.
Still is wrong.
And so, I mean, but let's teach that. But that doesn't mean that, Johnny, who's sitting in class, should feel bad about what his great-great-great-great-grandfather did. I mean, that's how times were. Everything evolves. You can't, even our world 10 years ago was different than it is now. So, but no, we need the good and the bad of history needs to be taught, for sure.
So what are your thoughts on curriculum? Because you said on your board, or on your Facebook page, you said this, and I'm quoting from your page. It says, because I don't want it to be out of context, the board has lost a lot of trust in the last few years with a lot of parents, and it's justified. School needs to always be open on what they are teaching and what teaching materials/tools are being used to teach. One of the big frustrations around the country with critical race theory is that a lot of teachers seem to be slipping. And I don't know that it's happening in Lodi. I haven't seen it in Lodi. So this is not an accusation about our school. But in other parts of the country, people have this concern that it's being slipped in and parents aren't even aware of it until after the fact. So what are your thoughts on the openness and transparency of teaching, what books are being assigned by the teachers and things like that?
It needs to definitely be open. I mean, and to be honest, I feel like I don't know if, unless you are trying to sneak something through, why would you have a problem with it being out there and people being able to see?
Well, I think for some people, the problem would be now if you've got 18, 20 kids in your classroom, now you've got all of these parents that all have opinions. So that could be part of the reason of just like, man, if we open this up, those teachers are going to be, you need more of this, you need less of this, you're doing too much of this, you're not doing enough of that. And I can understand, I taught for several years, and I can understand how that could be frustrating, but is that enough of a reason?
Parents are always great to deal with, right?
Right, parents are easy.
Yeah. And I get that, and I guess, and we could even put it in, the student handbook or something, saying this is what we're teaching, and, you can definitely have an opinion on it. That doesn't mean things are going to necessarily change. Now, saying that too, though, I would hope if, you are teaching a certain something off of a source, you're teaching the opposite view too. I mean, obviously not every class can have that. There's just,
sure.
But I mean, I guess that's not the worst thing either. Like if you say, well, this is what resources we use, you never know. There could be a parent that said, well, actually, you should try this resource. And guess what? Now we have better resources. I mean, so yes, you run the risk of having opinions, but I would rather that than a parent feeling like they were being manipulated or not told what their child was being taught.
Does it concern you in particular with current events? And this happens more at the high school level. Does it concern you when they're discussing current events for a teacher to share their personal opinions on subjects? So, for example, we've had the last several years of presidential elections and presidencies. We've had two very different presidencies and two very different ideologies about it. So, and I'm not asking which one you are for or against, but in both cases, it would be very easy to either praise or criticize on either side.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I would assume you're okay with teaching the facts about their presidency.
Yes.
Are you okay with a teacher giving their own, I think this president was great and here's why, and personal reasons, or would you like to see that kept away from?
I would like that kept out. And I'm sure it's got to be difficult because, a lot of people are pretty passionate about it.
And that's teachers, not students we're talking about.
Yes. And, teachers, I feel like, like let's say a debate class or something like that. I wouldn't want them. The thing is that teachers, I'm sure they know this. I hope they know this, how influential they are to our children.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes those kids think God's talking up there. I mean, they really listen. I know some teachers are like, yeah, right. They don't listen to us. There's some, but some of that stuff they just absorb. And I just think I would be more as a teacher. I'm not a teacher, but I feel like in the classroom, I would be more proud to present two types of view and let my kids debate about it and have the kids figure it out on their own instead of saying, well, Mr. Smith always thinks this, so I think I'm going to do that because I like Mr. Smith.
Right.
Let them decide. Let them hear. I mean, I remember being a kid and hearing one side of a political thing thinking, oh my gosh, how could you disagree with that? And then you hear the other view and you're like, oh.
Sure.
And hearing, having a teacher tell me what they feel, I feel like would have changed my opinion.
Yeah. But to be clear for everybody listening,
yeah.
Because I know some of the things you're saying might make things hard on teachers. Does that mean you hate teachers?
No.
Let's just clarify that.
Not. In fact, I would, I feel like, and I don't even know I haven't read the board policy or the board rules, but I know that you get an email when you become a board member. because I have emailed them before. My intention is to email every teacher and say, what can I do for you? Because our kids' education obviously is super important, but they are responsible for our kids' education. So we need them to be happy.
And it's a hard job.
I could never do it.
Yeah, I respect them.
No, I could not do it. I
stopped doing
volunteered.
it.
I volunteered in the classroom and for an hour when every week or whatever when my kids were little, and I'm always like, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously even getting older, it just even gets more complicated, But no, I would, and that's why almost the thing about, having the books and all the resources out there and people might criticize, I would almost want to I wouldn't want to put like a barrier so the teachers don't hear it, but it would almost be nice to put some sort of filter, because I don't want them to get discouraged either, because some parents and people in general can be mean.
Yeah.
And I would never want a teacher to be unmotivated or whatever. So that would be something interesting. Even the other night, someone had asked the question of, and actually it kind of bugged me with my answer, because I was like, I didn't explain that very well, about opening up, for transparency reasons, opening up emails and making them public. And I was like, well, of course. And then I thought about that and I thought, wait a minute. I would want it to be open in the fact of, questions about curriculum or, things happening in school. But then I was like, okay, but I want the teachers to be able to email the board and say, I don't like how this is done. And I don't want them to have fear of their job. So after I said that, because I want everybody to be able to see stuff, but then I thought, wait a minute, and again, it would have to be written out and how we do it, but I would never want a teacher's name out there.
Yeah.
So you could possibly see what the email's about. Obviously, if it's about a student, no.
Right.
That can't be. That's not even a question.
We're not assuming that you've thought through an entire policy on this at this point.
Yes, and that's why I was like, I didn't want people thinking, now the teachers aren't going to have a safe spot to be open.
Right.
And I want them to be, because I do feel I don't have proof on this, so I don't want to start anything, but I know that when this whole COVID thing started, people had said that there was pressure on teachers for different points of view, and that just made me really sad.
Yeah. I want to kind of go back to one of the reasons people believe that things like critical race theory and whatnot should be taught, and we're not going to talk about critical race theory right now, but one of the reasons people think those things is because they believe there's racism, and they believe we've all grown up in the world of there's always mean kids. Bullying, I think, is something that is important to you. You talked about it on your page, and you guys had personal experience in your home having to do with it. And I know that's super important to a lot of people. So talk to me about what is your stand on bullying and how do you deal with it?
Well, again, I'm not in the school, so it's really hard. And unfortunately, I've heard both ends of it. I've experienced both ends of it, my kids. And some of it, I know from talking to other parents about it that some kids say, I'm getting bullied. And then it turns out that they're the bully.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also heard from parents that I've reached out to the school. They're not doing anything. That upsets me. Now, again, the school can only do so much. So the school definitely needs to be involved, but the parents need to be involved.
Yeah.
I've also heard from parents that they didn't even know their kid was being a problem. And I find that crazy. We get calls about our kids being exposed to COVID. Why are we not getting calls about our kids being problems or getting bullied? So I think it needs to be taken more seriously. And, I don't even know. I know some kids that get bullied just don't feel comfortable talking about it either. So I would love to find some connection where a kid would feel okay. Maybe having a box in the office where a kid can write something, and be anonymous or something, to put it out there, and then you would at least know that, wait a minute, I need to keep my eyes open for this, or, something. I just feel like, and like I said, I'm not in that school. They might be dealing with this all the time, and I'm only hearing about the bad cases,
Sure.
But no, bowling definitely needs to be taken care of and taken seriously on both ends, because usually the person bowling is having problems somewhere else.
Yeah. One of the things that is the most debated right now, because of it's coming up again, is this referendum. And again, I feel like I'm just throwing at you all of these ridiculous things that everybody is, but it's what I think most people are basing their votes on: masking, critical race theory, referendums, these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I apologize that it's not easy, but you're running for school board, so it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
You don't have any, you're not on the school board right now. You had no say in what is on for the referendum right now. So I'm not, you're welcome to address that, but here's where I'm coming from. If the referendum doesn't go through, and again, I'm not asking your personal opinion or how you plan to vote for it, but if it doesn't go through, there's obviously, according to the school, going to be some financial hits that come from that. What would be your goal or your plan moving from that point if it doesn't pass?
Well, like you said, it's hard to answer, not being involved. My guess is if I was on the board and it didn't get passed, I don't know all the policies, but I would guess that we'd have to get together immediately and discuss a lot of things and probably be there for a while. Because I sure as heck don't want to see 15 to 20 teachers let go. And so I've been trying to get more info on that. Running a business and running our household. I'm a big budgeter.
Yeah.
And I always feel like it's hard, but you can usually cut corners
more than
you think you can.
In the most recent survey that was done, if I remember correctly, I think there was four numbers you could vote on how the school board was doing different things: 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 being the best, 1 being the worst. And most of the parents of students, most of the non-staff people, so it was parents and non-parents in the community, gave the school board a 2-point something on average on how they're handling finances. I think the staff was a little over 3, so it was a little bit better, which may have something to do with the fact they're closer. Maybe they can see it, so maybe they're a little. There's at least a perception problem, don't you think?
Yes, and my kind of feeling is that unfortunately the money's gone already, and I feel like. Again, the whole transparency thing. I have heard from different people that have looked into way more research than I have, which has been helpful at times, where, for instance, that survey, we hired a company to look at survey results for us. That seems a little ridiculous to me, to spend, I think it was $11,000 or something, or I don't know what it was, thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
To look at survey results. And I feel like, why don't we use some of the resources we have? We could have maybe incorporated that into a class, a high school class. Could we have done a town hall or something? Asked for volunteers, or if anything, fine, ask people and pay them $50 for their time. That would have been a lot cheaper than, I don't think we would have had thousands of people volunteering. So I don't know. It's little stuff like that I feel like you're not willing to cut that, but you're willing to cut our teachers? Like, that just seems pretty insane to me. And I know they did that.
And if there is a reason why they chose to do it, it should be more open and public.
Yes.
There's a PR issue.
Yes. And that's the thing, too. Like, if I get on the board, people are going to know why I'm voting for something. And what are my reasonings? Unless you're not allowed to say it, I don't know. I'll have to obviously read up on stuff if I get on there. But I'm not one to just, I don't like that. Why? Because, you're going to know why I do or don't like something. But even that, they did the little committee my daughter was actually part of it, to ask the community what the board can do to make things better. Again, we hired someone to do that.
Mhm.
And that just,
For quite a bit.
I've heard a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't want to say a number because it's not a fact. But it was a lot of money that I thought, really? I mean, to be honest, the committee of people that they got together, I think if you would have given them the chance, they could have done exactly what that company or that guy did. I just was pretty shocked just to find out what the board can do. Like, just ask us.
Yeah.
or do this whole committee and, get more community involvement, whatever. That kind of stuff, it just bugs me a little bit that we are spending money on that stuff and then yet you're threatening teachers. I don't know. That hits a nerve with me.
Sure. What do you think about, I don't know if you had a chance to look at them. What do you think about Lodi's academic scores and how we're doing academically?
I get confused, to be honest,
Mhm.
because, again, I feel that you can kind of find the data that you want. I've heard that our scores are down, but then I've also heard that they're, like, really good in the country. So I was a little confused. I was actually trying to figure some stuff out. I am big into education, obviously. My kids are expected to do pretty well in school, and if you don't, then, again, you have to be proactive for yourself and figure it out. Reach out to someone or something. But I have 4 kids, and they all learn differently. They absorb things differently, and we need to focus. Yes, those kids that get those A+ and 4.0, that's awesome. Good for you. And we need to acknowledge that. But we also need to acknowledge the kids that, you know what, everything doesn't come super easy, and they don't absorb everything and
Sure.
be able to recite it all. So, the middle of the road kids, I want them to feel that they're doing the best they can too, and not always just, well, I'm not a 4.0 student, And so again, like, I don't know exactly how it works, but, like, can we have the upper math students, can they help tutor the middle ones? Because I can't expect the teachers to put more time into what they're already doing. But I just feel like we could pull resources and
Find some creative solutions.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
You have a family, you have a business. I've on purpose avoided talking about my wife on these what are these? Not really a podcast, on these live conversations.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, because it has nothing to do with her decision making or anything, is that it was more than she expected. It's the board meetings, it's the prep for. I mean, she spends several hours the day before the board meeting. Just like we come after church on Sunday, we'll go home and have lunch, and sometime that evening she'll take that agenda and read through the entire thing and make notes and have her plans and go into the meeting prepared, because she works all day Monday, goes right into the board meetings, and then there's subcommittees, and then they've had like some meet and greets and stuff, and there's conferences you can go to. I mean, there's a lot to this. Are you ready for it?
I think so. And I'm going to be. I mean, I'm not one to slack. Everything I do, I like to do it 110%. So I probably wouldn't have been able to do this when my kids were younger. So my youngest is 14. And I only have 2 at home now, 2 out of the house. So I feel like now is probably a good time. And I'm ready. I'm ready to donate that time. I'm ready to, I'm not going to do it I'm not going to do it halfway for sure. Because I know I've actually talked to some board members, and they did say that. And I talked to, I kind of asked, when I signed the papers to be on, I asked Mo Palmer, like, okay, what's really, and she had explained some stuff to me, and no, I'm ready.
Good. Well, I've tried to be hard but fair, hopefully. But here's what I want to do. I want to give you the last word, and when you're done, I'm going to say some closing comments, but I'm not going to pontificate on anything that you have to say right now. So I'm going to give you the floor.
Okay.
You can take as much time or as little time as you want, and just give us the pitch. Why do you deserve our vote?
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. I really do appreciate it. And I feel so. I grew up here. I went to Lodi. My husband went to Lodi. And like I said, 2 kids went through the school district. I have 2 in the district. I just feel like I have a good feeling of different perspectives. You know, I've been the parent of the athlete. I've been the parent of the arts and musical kid. I've been the parent of a kid that didn't do school sports, but did a lot on her own outside of school. I've coached, so I've seen the kids that naturally can do things, and I've seen the kids that don't maybe have that ability, but they are the ones that work the hardest. And I've seen, you know, again, like I mentioned before, 4 kids having the different learning styles and different accomplishments and, like, you know, different levels of what you need to be proud of and what you need to work harder on. And just being a mom too, obviously. And with 4 kids, we've had a lot of different kids in our house. And I've seen the struggles of some of those kids. I've seen the advantages that certain kids get. And I feel that I am going to be a pretty open. I want people to feel comfortable telling me, expressing whatever they want. If it's against what I feel, I want them to be able to say, you know what, I can go to her and I can express, and she's going to listen. And then she will either, you know, maybe change her ways, or at least she'll consider what I'm feeling. Just because there is, I mean, even, you know, yeah, we're a little community, but there's so many different views and feelings and emotions out there. And I just feel that I'm going to be open, but I'm not going to conform. I know there's politics involved, unfortunately, and I don't like that. So I'm not going to do something because you're supposed to, maybe, you know, and I want to walk away if I do get on the board, and during I'm on the board, or even when I'm done, I want to be proud of what I did, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't. So, but I just want people to feel they have a voice. And, you know, like I said, maybe I won't vote on exactly everything that you want, but at least you know that I'm listening to you. That's what I really want.
Awesome. Thank you for being a part of this. I know for all of you guys, this is not easy, because I didn't, just so you all know, they did not get any questions in advance. There was no prep for them to be able to get ready for these. And so all 3 candidates came on with kind of no clue what to expect. And I wanted it that way on purpose, because I wanted us to be able to just have a genuine conversation. And I wanted to have them kind of have to think on their feet a little bit and answer some of these questions. And I feel like all 3 of them have done a great job. I will be honest with you, I have not made up my mind on exactly how my vote is going to go in this election. So just for those that might think, oh, he just did this because he's trying to push some agenda, I still am undecided as of this exact moment. So I just want you to know that the heartbeat behind this was to give you information so that you can make an informed decision, and you can go to the polls with all of the information you need. I know that what I had heard in the past, especially when my wife ran last year, we heard some people say, we didn't really know who you were. We didn't know anything about you. We kind of just Googled you at the last minute and thought maybe you'd be a good choice. My goal is to make sure people know who our candidates are, and so I'm grateful for the 3 that have participated. No ill will to Bill and Julie for not participating. I do want them to know they have an open invitation. I will do interviews, conversations with them at any point between now and the election if they'd like to. I would be happy to sit down and be fair and just have these same conversations with them as well. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions for our candidates, find them on Facebook. Heather's on Facebook. Heather Barron for Lodi School Board. Check out her page. She's answering questions there and trying to stay actively engaged there. She is a mom, and she's got her own business, and so be patient with that and give her some time. But thank you for tuning in and being a part of this, and hopefully you've enjoyed these conversations, and hopefully they've been a help to you.